us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for all of you. My name is Dawna Levenson. I have the privilege of co-leading our admissions team. I am one of two assistant deans for admissions, and I want to thank everybody here in Cambridge for getting up so early this morning to join us. We are here today to provide you with an overview of our MBA program as well as our LGO program. By way of helping me better understand who might be in the room today, how many of you are thinking about applying this year, whether it be in round 2 or round 3? Nice. How many of you have pretty much just started your journey, and so it may not be for a year, 2 years? That's also wonderful. From my opinion, it is never, ever too early to start exploring what your options are, visiting us. Come visit us again. You're welcome to do this multiple times. Visit other schools. There's no better way to really get to know and understand a school than by visiting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a short video, and then I'm going to welcome up our panel of students who we all really, really need to thank because they are in the middle of studying, I hope, for finals and finishing up last-minute papers. Classes ended earlier this week. Exams are next week. And so I really, really appreciate the panel who you'll meet in a few minutes coming out and spending some time with you all this morning. In addition, we have coffee and we have orange juice. Sorry, everybody around the world, but we have coffee and orange juice for those of you here in the room, as well as some homemade baked goods. We are pretty informal around here. So if halfway through you decide you need another little jolt of coffee, don't hesitate to get up and come take a refill. I won't take it personally, and neither with our panel. So with that, let me start with a video.
What's special about MIT students is they really have a drive to learn and to convert that learning into impact in the world.
And they don't take themselves too seriously, but they take their mission very, very seriously. There's always kind of been this focus on how do you advance, society, and that's in the founding of MIT, and I think that lives on through the way we think at the Sloan School.
We are in the business of helping people become better leaders, principled, innovative leaders who improve the world.
You never hear somebody bragging about how much their startup just raised or all of the amazing job offers that they got.
People just don't think to boast about all the amazing stuff that they're doing because they're focused on doing it.
You have a very high density of people that really aspire to change the world and make it a better place.
An example of that is the action learning labs that Sloan is famous for. I've helped a small Peruvian company identify targets for acquisition.
I did a class called USA Lab where I spent 2 weeks in Oregon in a small fishing town.
We were partnered with a company that was bringing English education to rural Vietnamese students.
These are things that aren't necessarily just learning business and doing cases. This is an experience that is much more immersive. The accessibility is definitely a differentiating factor when it comes to the faculty.
I really view our students as collaborators and colleagues.
Being able to have those conversations and actually get their perspectives on what's going on in the real world has been very, very valuable.
I asked a professor, and she says that when she's teaching here, it feels like she's having a conversation around the dinner table.
So when I teach, I'm always amazed how much of it is really a two-way stream.
The focus on entrepreneurship that actually makes a difference and is purposeful and impactful was really what drew me here.
Coming to MIT Sloan completely changed my perspective on the business world and just the impact that I think that I can have in the future.
And as someone who grew up in the heart of Silicon Valley, for Sloan to say, we are invested in our female students, and it matters to us that they're moving up in the career ladder, that was a really important thing for me.
It introduced me to the entrepreneurial ecosystem that I fell in love with, a ton of different resources that I've been able to benefit from, and that was kind of the moment when I knew that this was the right place for me.
I remember calling my parents at the end of orientation and just saying, I found my place.
Okay. All right. Not the slide I wanted, but that's okay. I improvise. So, hopefully from the video, one of the things you got out of that is that we're really very much a mission-driven school. The mission of the Sloan School, which is actually on this, if you came from downstairs and came up the stairs, you would see it engraved on the wall. In my own words, it's about developing principled leaders who are going to tackle the world's biggest problems, make it a better place, and advance management practices along the way. And I have to be honest, you heard a little bit about it in the video. I think it's present in the classroom, it's present in the community, it's actually present in our student body. For those of you who may have started your application already, what you'll see is, well, actually, it's not in the written application. To the extent that you actually are invited for an interview, and we'll talk about that later, it's actually our interview essay as well reinforces that we are very, very much a mission-driven school. Before I call the panel up, let me just go through a couple of basics. I'm going to assume that most of you have done your homework. I think you hopefully grabbed our fact sheets for MBA and LGO out front, but a couple of reminders. Number one, MBA, 2-year MBA, 1 semester core, and then 3 semesters to really shape the curriculum to meet your own personal interests. If you happen to be interested in finance or entrepreneurship or enterprise management, we have 3 tracks. Think of those as roadmaps and communities of people with the similar interests. In addition, we have 3 certificates, 1 in healthcare, 1 in sustainability, and our most recently added one is a 3rd in business analytics. Now, the question that I'm sure is going through this room is whether or not, what's the difference between the 2 and whether or not you can do 1 of each. So a fundamental difference between tracks and certificates is that the tracks are open to our MBA community, while our certificates are open not just to the MBA community, in fact, not just to the Sloan community, but to the entire MIT community. So you could be pursuing the sustainability certificate alongside a PhD in chemical engineering. And that's just one of the many ways that MIT Sloan truly integrates with the rest of the MIT community. The other part of that question is whether or not you can actually do 1 of each. And the answer is they have absolutely been designed to allow you to do that. You need to be a little proactive in terms of mapping out your courses to make sure you're taking the right courses in the right semesters. But you can envision yourself perhaps doing the finance track and then applying it to the field of healthcare. And so definitely a possibility. With that, so those are the basics, right? Oh, one other thing, and then I'm going to have our panelists come on up, is that class size. So our MBA LGO class is roughly 405 people. The group that just started this past fall is actually 416, slightly larger. We had a few more people accept our offers, which is fine by us. And so that's the combined MBA LGO. For those of you who are just starting out doing research of programs, you'll find that that's somewhere in the middle of from a class size. We have peers out there who are larger, who are around the 900 mark. We also have peers out there who are on the 200 mark. The 400-person class size is a very intentional class size that has been preserved by our Dean Dave Schmidtlein, who's been with us now since 2007. And what he believes, and what I can certainly see, is that with a class of around 400, you get really the best of both worlds. You get incredible diversity in the class with 400 people with different backgrounds, different geographical representation. The current class that just entered, 54 different countries represented. You get gender diversity. You really get with people different backgrounds and interests, but yet 400 people, not so overwhelming. Enough people who you can really get to know. In fact, you get to know not only your current class, but the class usually of people ahead of you and the class behind you. And so that's a very protected size and something that you should think about as you're out there looking at different programs. All right, with that, could our panelists come on up and grab a seat? You know who you are. Oh, perfect. Take a seat. And what I would love for you to do, there's 2 mics that you guys can share. You're good. Anybody, if you need a drink, you just let me know. I'm here to serve all of you today. Drinks, food. You doing good? You're okay? Okay, perfect. All right. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves to everybody, tell us your name, tell us what you did before Sloan, and tell us what you're doing, how you're shaping the program really in terms of if you're doing a certificate or something, and if you know what your plans are for next year or for the summer, depending on where you are, let us know that as well. Sound good?
So
they're on. I don't think you have to do anything. They're just on. Yep. You're good.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Zhang. I come from China. I worked in McKinsey Shanghai office before coming to Sloan. So here in Sloan, I'm pursuing a career in healthcare industry. So I'm pursuing a healthcare certificate and a business analytics certificate. So I'm a first-year MBA student, so I just finished my core semester, my first semester. So going forward, I'm currently debating for my next semester courses. So hopefully I can get all of my favorite courses in healthcare related and business analytics related going forward. Thank you.
Oh, in this summer, because you're McKinsey, are you going back to McKinsey? Do you know what you're doing?
In the summer, we're recruiting for biotech companies here in Boston.
Nice.
Hi, I'm Elena. I'm from New York, and before Sloan, I was in New York working in finance. Over the past summer, I worked at REI up in Seattle. I'm thinking about pursuing the sustainability certificate. I would say that I've pursued a pretty diverse breadth of courses. I don't specifically have a focus on entrepreneurship or healthcare. I've really enjoyed exploring across all of Sloan. After graduation, I'll be going into consulting at BCG.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jared Pierce. I'm a second-year MBA. Similar to Elena, I was in New York before Sloan. I worked in finance at Merrill Lynch. Post-Sloan, I'll be going back to New York and finance at UBS doing investment banking. Kind of just to pound it home, I'm in the finance track at MIT Sloan.
That's good.
Can speak on that, and welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nalika. I'm an LGO second year. So my engineering track is civil engineering. And on MBA, I take classes in competitive strategy, finance, and economics that I'm really interested in. Before coming to Sloan, I was at the Boeing company. I worked on a bunch of commercial airplane programs. And after Sloan, I'm going back to the Boeing company. So I'm excited.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some classroom activities. So just as our students have tremendous flexibility in terms of shaping their curriculums, so do our faculty. So we are not a case-based school. Our faculty really have the opportunity to teach in whatever way they feel makes the most sense and is most effective. You'll have classes that have cases. You'll have classes that are traditional lectures and problem sets. You'll have a lot of project-based classes. And we have a category of our projects-based classes that we call our action learning labs. So the motto of MIT is Mensi Manus, mind in hand. That really spills into Sloan and into our action learning lab classes where based on either a particular topic or geography, you are as a team working on solving a real problem for a real company. You noticed a couple of people in the video actually talked about this. One of the very interesting parts of this is that at some point in the class, depending on whether it's a fall or a spring, it's slightly different. You actually travel to that company on the ground, getting to know the people better, and refining your recommendations and actually presenting them. Any of you do action learning lab classes that you might want to share about that experience?
Okay, so I would say that one of my motivations going into Sloan was that I wanted to better understand how sustainability, quote unquote, works in private organizations, as well as companies that produce goods that people touch and use personally. So last spring semester, I did the sustainability lab here, and the partner company that I was partnered with was Patagonia. So I spent a lot of last year learning about how the retail and apparel industry works, how they think about it from a sustainability perspective, and the many challenges that are associated with it. So I really appreciated the opportunity because we were placed into a group of 4 random students that we didn't get to pick ourselves. And as you do coursework at Sloan, the group that you do your work with is really important because they're going to be shaping a lot of your experiences there. So I was really fortunate to learn from 3 people who have completely different working styles than I do. Our partner client was really flexible and just wanted us to be as involved as we wanted to be, and gave us a pretty strong leeway into access to information and people within the organization, learning about marketing to product selection to the chemicals and supply chains. So I felt like we were able to use a lot of the knowledge that we were learning through different classes as well. So I really appreciate it because you get kind of an invaluable doorway into how a company operates on a day-to-day basis while also maintaining kind of your student and academic perspective to the project as well.
I'll speak really quickly. I'm currently in the Global Lab, which is, I think, one of the larger labs here at Sloan. So we partner with companies around the world, and I'm currently taking the course. So this January, my team and I will be traveling to Indonesia, working with Gojek, and we'll be on the ground there for 3 weeks. We are doing an internal strategy and M&A analysis for them on the payments market in Southeast Asia. It's highly fragmented, so we have a lot of, my team is myself and 2 people in basically with a finance background and 2 people with a consulting strategy background. And so the 4 of us will really be analyzing, well, we have been analyzing the payments market in Southeast Asia, targets that the company might want to acquire, or start from the ground themselves. So it's been an awesome experience, and definitely I can speak on it offline, but it's definitely an amazing experience here at MIT Sloan.
Right. Anybody else? Okay, so one other thing on the faculty that I think is really worth noting is that so many of our faculty will tell you that one of the reasons they are here is because of the interactions that they are able to have with our students. Our faculty are tremendously, are incredibly approachable. They do not show up on day one, say, please here buy my book, I'll see you at the final. In fact, our faculty teach their classes. You can see them in the cafeteria. It's not uncommon at all to see one of them sitting at a table with several students talking about whatever's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that day. There's opportunities for you to, support their research, whether it be through an independent study or even you could do a thesis if you wanted to. But the point being that the relationships that our students develop with our faculties, I think is very, very unique. And I'm wondering if a couple of you might want to tell a favorite faculty story.
So this semester, I took a class with one of the, I think Sloan's favorite professors, Zainab Tun. It was an amazing experience. So one of my most favorite experience of the class is, she has a strong relationship with, working relationship with, obviously, with the founder of Costco. He actually came to class. He's 83 years old. And then at the end of the class, he said, oh, we are going to Costco in Boston. I want to go do a inspection, right? The walkthrough. That's something he does every year. So he goes, hey, any of you want to come? Just let's go. So we ended up, Zainab took about 15 of us to Costco. Just imagine with this billionaire founder walked around Costco. It was a cool experience. And then, yeah, something that I will never forget.
So I just finished my course semester. I have too many favorite professors. One of it is our professor for communications. It is a course about communications, apparently. His name is Miro. His class is already full. We cannot bid on it. I think he was a Sloanee about like a few years ago, and he did some entrepreneurship experiences and then came back to school to teach communications. His classes is like always full of fun. We did impromptu every time, which pushed me a lot to come out of my comfort zone and to really practice how to speak in public settings. And he shared a lot of his personal experiences, personal struggles when he was doing his entrepreneurship. So I really appreciate that because firstly, we have a lot of like entrepreneurs or like industry people who come back to Sloan to share their own experience and to apply their learnings back to the classroom, which is really beneficial to us. And secondly, I think all of the faculties I meet are all very like authentic and sincere in terms of sharing their own stories, like treating us as peers and trying their best to help us. So that's one thing I appreciate the most.
Okay. I now want to move outside of the classroom. And so there are many, many different activities you can engage in as an MIT Sloan student. In fact, in any given year, we have somewhere between 60 and 70 clubs. We also have a student senate, of which Jared was a little modest when he introduced himself. He did not mention that he is Senate co-president this year. And so depending on your interests, there's a lot of different things that you can actually get involved in. And these clubs range from this purest of social clubs, purest. My favorite example of that is, in fact, a club that's called the Happy Belly Club. And so for students who love to try new restaurants, that's exactly what this group of students does. And I don't know how often they meet, every week, I have no idea. But we also have a lot of sports clubs. We then have a lot of a little bit more serious business clubs. There's a consulting club, there's a VCPE club, there's an investing club, you name it. And so I'm wondering, and I'm starting with you, Jared, of if you could talk a little bit about how you have chosen to spend your time outside of the classroom.
Yeah, thank you. So as she said, as Dawna said, I am the co-president of Sloan. So when I came in, I really wanted to have an impact and take on leadership roles outside the classroom. And there are about 60, 70 active clubs on campus, and they range from, very social, very informal, all the way to, I guess, the more serious ones, such as Sloan Senate. And for me, I really wanted to get firsthand experience of having an impact on the school long term and working with other students that had kind of the same mission. So outside Sloan Senate, I also am involved with the investment banking club, and I also TA finance. Yeah, I'm her TA. Yeah. So those two experiences for me have been made Sloan an amazing place, and we all come here for the education and to further our careers, but it's an invaluable aspect of the MBA program that can't be overlooked.
So I kind of went into business school with a little bit different approach of, again, I said that I'm not really focused on one specific industry, and I figure before Sloan, I was working long hours. After Sloan, I expect to be working long hours. So I wanted to focus more on the social aspect and like learning from other people at this school. So I would say one of my most favorite clubs that I'm involved with is this thing called the Yarn, which takes place about once a month, 2 to 3 times over the semester. And it's 5 or 6 of your classmates who come out to share stories about themselves. It takes place in a classroom a few doors down. It's kind of phones down, no electronics. It's just a couple hundred people gathered both in person and online to listen, and that's it. And I find that really valuable because people are willing to be so vulnerable about things that probably we are reluctant to speak about in just pure social settings. And I think that willingness to be vulnerable and just wanting to share yourself with others, I found that really profound here.
As mentioned, there are so many different activities you can do. 2 things that I've focused on. One is it's called Robo Ai Exchange. It's a conference that the Sloan, mostly second years and first year, second years host. So they bring in industry experts from artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotics, automation in Sloan for a day. And then we invite students, we invite industry participants to come in and then discuss how they implemented those solutions. The second one that I'm involved in is called the Hyperloop Competition. I don't know if you're familiar with Hyperloop. So we have a team that has done really, really well within the last few years. Like we've won last year, we won #1 in the whole US and #5 in the whole world, right? So that team is going forward. The competition is not announced yet, but we have an incredible team working towards like building this machine. So we get a chance to collaborate a lot with the engineering school, which is amazing, like all these genius undergrads, which is amazing. For example, the youngest team member is 12 years old. The guy is incredible. he teaches me about like rockets and things like that I've never like learned myself. So it's been amazing.
I want to add 2 points. The first point is that MIT Sloan is so integrated with the One MIT community, so we have a lot of opportunity to participate in all of the MIT clubs. I myself is in MIT Women's Chorale, so I got a chance to sing together with a lot of like people like MIT's women, like alumni with an age ranging from like probably 22 years old to 70 years old. So this is a really great opportunity for me to get to know people from different departments and from the broader alumni community. And the second thing is that you have the chance to shape your own club experience here. I have a classmate who started his own club called Mindfulness Club, which leads us to do the meditation every week. I think we also started a new club like this year about like board games, which allow us to have fun a lot. Yeah.
So this is great because the panel already hit on what my next point is, which is in fact the MIT and MIT Sloan. And as you go and visit other schools, this is truly our greatest differentiator because no other business school can say that they are MIT School of Management. And it manifests itself in many, many ways. You've heard a couple of examples already, but I want to begin even with the most basic. So if you show up on campus and you want to live in a dorm, there is no guarantee that your roommate is a Sloan student. Your roommate could be a PhD in physics. As a Sloan student, you have the ability to take classes throughout the institute in any other department and vice versa. So you could be in a finance class with a PhD in biology. As was just mentioned, you can participate in institute-wide clubs, conferences, lectures, competitions, you name it. There are several courses out there that are actually co-taught. One of the best examples is, in fact, a product design class that is co-taught by faculty from Sloan, as well as from the Media Lab and the Rhode Island School of Design. So there's many, and how could I forget, but the LGO program itself is probably the poster child for the impact and the capabilities and the power of the integration between Sloan and the rest of the MIT community. So I was wondering if maybe, and let's start with LGO, talk just a little bit about truly being part of the greater MIT community, as well as an MIT Sloan student and what that means.
So as you know, LGO is a combination of engineering and MBA. So we take the regular MBA course load plus 2 or 3 courses, maybe 2 courses per semester above the basic MBA requirements. So we get a chance to really run back and forth between the engineering department and here to take classes. So a few things to mention. Engineering faculty is, as you know, world class. For example, this semester I got a chance to take a class on rocket propulsion, and then the professor who taught actually designed the rocket engines that went on the space shuttle, right? He was part of Pratt & Whitney, and then he talked the whole story of about the design and the challenges that went through, right? And then if you like, you can also go into other schools and learn, take classes. Example, I was really interested in military operations. I'm from the Boeing company. Military, the defense is a huge part of the company. So I went and took a class in military operation taught by a professor who worked at Pentagon for years and then worked on all these different classified projects. Some things he couldn't talk about, obviously, but fascinating subjects. So likewise, I've taken classes in like large and complex systems, right? I've sat in a class in blockchain. So so you can take many classes as you like in engineering.
So I would say one of my most favorite experiences from last year was participating in the Patagonia case competition. And going into Sloan, I was like, ugh, I'm never going to do a case competition. It's so cheesy. But it was a team of 6 people. It was 2 MBAs, 2 LGOs. And the prompt was to consider how we might remove single-use packaging for both apparel and food items. And then so we need 2 more people who have really credible experience in the area. So we met with so many different PhD program students across MIT campus, and we found one person who'd kind of specifically worked on this case for Frito-Lay as an intern thinking about degradation, and another woman who was super focused on marine degradation and oceanography. So together we worked for about 8 months together to come up with a solution, and I thought our solution was going to be more strategic, but we actually came up with kind of a physical product, thinking through the combination of different elements that I personally wouldn't have known how to do, but I think together we were able to think through that solution holistically. So I found a lot of value in that, because being in the MBA bubble, you kind of get used to how business students think, and we're always driving towards action, what's implementable. You go towards the PhD realm and they're thinking of what is possible, and maybe it's not commercial and it's not even, you're not going to see it for the next 5 to 10 years, but they're thinking through what are possible solutions. So to kind of marry those 2 minds was really important, because you need a lot more of that perspective, I think, just to think through what are some of the long-term solutions that we'll need out there.
And quickly, I haven't done any conferences or any LGO, but across campus, you do have the opportunity to register just for classes that may interest you. A lot of students come in and say, oh, we're at MIT, we want to take a programming class or a mathematics course or something like that that they maybe didn't hit in their undergrad or previous studies. So that opportunity is there. For me, it's kind of random, but last semester I really wanted to take Japanese 1. So I took Japanese 1 with a lot of freshmen from MIT undergrad, and it was interesting to say the least. And then last semester I also took a class in real estate and with our Department of Urban Studies. And again, if you have interests that lie outside the business realm, outside Sloan, like, you're more than welcome to cross-register and take the class. It's an amazing experience.
Thank you. All right, one last question for you all, and then we're going to shift gears. So we completely understand that the majority of people come to business school to further advance their careers. We have a career development office that actually today starts working with you before you even show up. And their focus is to really help to prepare you to be successful in your job search, not just your first job search, whether it be for your summer internship or for that first job after school, but for your 3rd, 4th, 5th job search. They also recognize that in this day and age, people have very specialized interests. And so there's many, many ways for you to actually secure that next job. They support you in that effort. They help you define your network. They help you connect with alums around the world. We can now finally get to our alumni slide that's been up there. And then, though, they also bring in firms as well for info sessions and for on-campus recruiting. But clearly, many, many of our students will find their next opportunity in a variety of different ways. And so I'm wondering if a couple of you could just speak to how you may have secured your summer internship or your job that you're going to be going to once you graduate, and what, if any, support the Career Development Office provided you during that journey.
I'm realizing that we're all kind of like unique cases, because 2 of us did pretty recruitment heavy roles. Nalika is sponsored going back to Boeing, and you're going to go down that wonderful journey of finding the summer internship. I would say for me last year, I got a lot of help from our peers, 2nd-year students who had done the consulting route, who donated a tremendous amount of their time helping first years get through the cases and making sure that we were as prepared as possible, and also working with CDO to make sure that the companies that we wanted to work with were available to us. I think thinking through the sustainability internship pipeline, if you go in there with kind of an idea of a type of company that you're interested in, they were really helpful. One of the people in the video who I've never seen in person, Ben Funk, I actually got connected with him randomly, and we spoke for like an hour about his job at this place called Sidewalk Labs, which is thinking about the cities of the future and how Google and Alphabet might have a hand in it. So I think the types of connections that you want to have and build and industries that you want to learn about, they are incredibly quick and determined to make sure that you're finding the right people that you want to speak with.
So similar to Elena, I did very structured recruiting. So the CDO was awesome. They partnered with our finance track and brings in a lot of, if you're interested in finance, they bring in a lot of CEOs or head of business units. So last fall, they invited the head of UBS, who's a Sloanie, and he came and took 20 of us out to dinner, and then the 20 of us basically got job interviews out of it. So it's opportunities like that that you hear about actually pretty frequently in business school. And, you know, Sloan's connections around the world, our alumni are very engaged, and then the CDO office is incredibly active and incredibly helpful, kind of getting you off the ground, helping you find your footing. If you're a little scatterbrained like a lot of us are when we first come in, we're not really sure and you're getting pulled in a lot of directions, they help you kind of solidify that. So by no means do you have to come in to Sloan or to business school in general with a direct path or an exact exit. So a lot of us do pivot and change our minds multiple times, and the CDO is there the entire time.
So I didn't have to do full-time recruiting, but I did interview for LGO internship. So I did my internship in Germany, a company called Machine and Fabric Reinhausen, and throughout the process, CDO helped me like review the resume, prepare for interviews. That was really helpful.
I'm recruiting for biotech companies. It's not very structured program, so that requires a lot of networking, which is a little bit difficult for an introverted person coming from a different background. So I think I benefit a lot from both the CDO and my peers. From the CDO's perspective, I go to there is a CDO session or a career core recitation every week, covering like every single topic in terms of developing a career, from like how to find your job in a structured way, and how to find a job in a networking way, how like what to say during a networking session. So I find these like hand-holding from CDO is very, very helpful. In terms of peers, I actually received a lot of help from the first-year Sloanies as well as second-year Sloanies at the Sloan Healthcare Club. One of my peer in the Sloan Healthcare Club yesterday just like gave me a full list of all of the people she has networked with, like their contact, and I felt like deeply touched by their way of like giving back to the community, their way of helping each other.
All right, great. Thank you all. We're going to shift gears. Don't go away. I'm giving you a homework assignment. We're going to talk about the application process and the application components. I'd like each of you, stay where you are, think about a word or phrase, not a paragraph, a word or phrase that best describes your MIT Sloan experience to date. Now, with everybody else, I'm going to talk about the application. Full disclosure, what I realized while they were chatting is I have the wrong slides up. I know Reed's up there looking at what are these, but don't worry, I know enough about it. I can tell you where the slight changes are. So first, let me just say, so for those of you who are thinking about LGO deadline is passed, so you're really thinking about next year. For those of you for MBA, our round 2 deadline is coming up. It's January 21st. And anybody sitting in this room who's thinking about applying this year, I strongly encourage you to apply in round 2 and not wait till round 3. And I'm going to tell you why. It's not because we have quotas, it's because we don't. And at any point in time, we are actually looking to admit the most qualified people who we can from our pool based on the number of seats we have available. And so, round 1 for the 2-year MBA, we have roughly 350 seats to fill. By the time we get to round 2, I have no idea how many seats that is, but I can guarantee you it's less than 350. And by the time we get to round 3, it's a really small number of seats. So to best position yourself, I encourage you to apply as early as possible. In addition, when you apply, especially round 1 or round 2, you have the opportunity to either be admitted or possibly waitlisted. Yes, you could be rejected too, but if you're waitlisted, you are then automatically considered as part of the next round's pool. That's different than saying, we will waitlist you, we'll admit people in the next round, and if we have a couple of seats, we'll then look at the waitlist. Again, that goes back to our point that at any point in time, we are looking to admit the most qualified people. So whether it's this year or next, whether it's, whatever it may be, my message here is to, put together a meaningful application that you can feel really proud of, but apply as early as you possibly can within that cycle. Now, for anybody here who's like, oh, I was going to apply in round 2, do I need to wait another whole year? That is not what I am telling you. at all. If for personal reasons, this is the right time for you to apply, apply in round 2. All right, so let's talk about application components. Our entire evaluation process, which is made up of the written application as well as a face-to-face, hopefully in-person interview, is really meant for us to get to know you and over the course of time for you to get to know us as well. And in the end, we are really asking ourselves 3 basic questions. Number 1, can he or she do the work? We would never, ever want to admit somebody to our program who is not well positioned to be successful in an MIT Sloan classroom. So can they do the work? Number 2, are they the type of person, everybody's getting ready to write this down, what is she about to say? It's simple. Are you the kind of person who has the interest, desire, capability of making an impact? Have you demonstrated that in the past? Will you make an impact on the Sloan community? Look at these people up here. The MIT Sloan community will be different because they have been a part of it. And then number 3 is really around interpersonal skills. Are you the type of person who enjoys being part of a team, works well in a team, celebrates other people's successes? So much of what you heard today, so much of the examples that they gave were about other people and working with other people. And so in the end, these are the 3 things we're asking. Now, how do we gather that information? Well, first and foremost, there's the written application. The written application is made up of a resume. We're asking for a professional resume. Cover letter, right? 300-word cover letter. An org chart that best represents the work that you are doing today. Now, a couple of points on the org chart. If you happen to work for a really large firm, it could be a consulting firm, it could be financial services, whatever that might be, we are not looking for the fairly generic company org chart that's on the website. That's not what we want. What we'd love is for you to create an org chart that's more representative of you, the role that you have, who may or may not be your direct reports, peers, and what the reporting line is. Think of it almost like a relationship map where you stick yourself in the middle and all of the people around you with who you interact. I promise you there is no wrong answer to this. This is not a trick question. This is only our, God, I'm losing track of time, but I think this is our 2nd year that we've asked for the org chart. I can tell you we did not admit anybody last year because we didn't think they had a good org chart. So this is just really to help provide us with some context around you, your role, and how you might fit into the greater organization or within a particular team within an organization. Letter of recommendation. So this is how I knew this was the wrong presentation, because this says letters. So in the past, I think all of you needed to submit 2 letters of recommendation. This year, 1 letter of recommendation. 1. So make it a good one. I mean, from my standpoint, the best advice I can give you is you should think about who your recommender is as early as you've decided to apply to a school. You should reach out to him or her. You should spend time talking with them, speaking with them. Make sure they understand your motivations. Make sure they are champions of your pursuit here. And make sure they are willing to take the time to write a thoughtful and meaningful letter of recommendation. And if you're not getting that vibe from them, think about actually asking somebody else. We are looking for, ideally, it's a supervisor. Ideally, it's your current supervisor. But we totally understand that you may not yet be ready to tell your organization that you're applying to business school. And there's a variety of reasons. You may be up for a promotion. You may be waiting for your bonus. You may not be sure you're going to get in. We understand all of that. So while ideally it is your supervisor, if it isn't, we understand. A couple of don'ts. Don't ask a peer. Don't ask the CEO of the company who may not know you very well. You bumped into him or her at a party or in an elevator, and you think their title will be impressive, but they're going to end up writing 3 sentences. That doesn't help. We actually are assessing you and not them, so their level in the organization doesn't play so much of a role. So don't do that. If you happen to be part of a family business, this is a little tricky because we really don't want a family member. So you have to get a little creative. Think of perhaps a customer, a client, somebody else with whom you have developed a business relationship. This is meant to be a business recommendation. Now, what's not up there is we're also asking you for 2 references. Similar to a job, these are 2 people who also know you professionally. There's a very good chance that we will never contact them. However, if we're getting through the process, if we think that you look like a good fit, but we still have a couple of questions to ask, we may reach out. So you should not give us their names and contact information and not let them know what this is about. In addition, though, we would never cold call them. So whoever your references are would never be driving on the highway, see there's a phone from an unknown caller, pick it up and say, "Hi, this is Dawna from MIT Sloan. I'd love to talk to you about so-and-so." We will send them an email, let them know, remind them of why we're calling, why we're contacting them, and set up a time that works for everybody, okay? So just know that. So 2 references. Again, think about it like job references. Academic transcripts from all institutions that contributed to you receiving your degrees. Now, we word it that way because, number one, from an undergrad standpoint, many people spend a semester or a year away. We want to see those grades. And every school handles it differently, so it's really on you to understand how that is handled and for you to make sure that we see all of those grades. If you happen to have a graduate degree, many of our people who apply to our program have an advanced degree. We want to see those grades as well. And nowadays, a lot of people may have pursued an online certification of some sort or taken an online class. We want to see those as well, because in the end, this is helping us really to make that first assessment, which is just whether or not you'd be successful in the classroom. So anything that you have done that helps us get to that conclusion, please share with us. GMAT or GRE, we do not care. And by that, I mean, we do not care what you took. We certainly care about your score. And for those of you who have watched me or seen me in a presentation before, yes, I always use that one, so I'm sorry. But it actually happened once. I was giving a presentation, I was talking about this, and someone raised their hand and said, "If you don't care, why do we have to do it?" So I feel like it needs a point of clarification. And I promise you, we really do not care. It has to be valid, which means it has to have been taken within the last 5 years. And we don't do any kind of translation. So we understand what a GMAT score means. We understand what the GRE score means and the breakdown of the quant and the verbal. And so we assess each one of them on its own. Video statement, 60 seconds. Introduce yourself to your future classmates. Now, on this one, first and foremost, it's really important to note that we are not looking for production quality. Take your phone, whatever it may be, hold it yourself, put it on a selfie stick, ask a friend to hold it for you. That's really the quality of what we're looking for. This is not professionally produced. On the creativity front, yes, over the last couple of years, people have definitely expressed themselves creatively through their videos. Couple of pieces of advice. Don't get carried away. Don't compromise the quality of the audio so that we can't hear it for some kind of visual effect. And what do I mean by that? Well, last year, and I hope I'm not offending anyone in this room, you always run that risk when you give examples, so I try to make them a little bit more generic. But many people who applied last year were really passionate about skiing. And so they chose to shoot their video either on the top of a mountain or even on a ski lift. And while that was very creative, a lot of times you hear like people swooshing by skiing, and so you couldn't hear what they were saying. So again, don't sacrifice the quality of the audio. The other thing that was really big last year, and I feel bad for any of you who have already down this route, the movie Love Actually, with the poster boards, with the Sharpies, with the words on it, that was very, very popular last year. Again, you're more than welcome, but just so you know, you may not get that many points on it. No, seriously. While they were talking, it was like supposed to be, I think, subliminal. Please admit me. I love MIT, like I heart MIT Sloan. I kid you not. So now here's something else to think about. If you think about the cover letter, the resume, and the video, think about these 3 things together to tell your story. And so if you think about it, the resume is your professional background. The video is the personal side, and then the cover letter is why MIT Sloan. And those 3 things together should really help you present to us why we should be interested in learning more about you. We understand that the way this is structured, you can't possibly tell us everything there is to know about you. You can't possibly tell us everything every reason why you want to come to MIT Sloan. You can't possibly cut and paste all of the different sections of our website that you've read over 10 times. And so that's a word of warning. Don't use your real estate wisely. Don't tell us what we're about, because we know that. Now, having said that, if there's certain aspects of the school, whether it be your certificate or one of the areas that you're really passionate about, that's great. But really use your real estate wisely. And this is another reason how I knew this was old, we no longer have an optional section. We feel that we've given you, throughout the course of the whole application, opportunities to share what we need to know. And that's it. All applications are reviewed. Whether you submit your application today or on January 21st, we are not going to even look at it until January 22nd. We often get that question. All applications will be reviewed, and then a subset of people will be invited for an interview. An interview is a required next step in the process. It is by invitation only. For both rounds 1 and round 2, we have people from our office traveling the globe. I think we go to maybe 15 different cities, and so we make it pretty easy for you to come to us. And we ask on the application, what are your priorities in terms of cities, and we hope to match that. In addition, anybody invited for an interview is always welcome to come here on campus for your interview. And if you suggest, you put on your application that you want to go to a particular city, and then your situation changes, which happens, let us know. Send us a note. I thought I was going to be in Paris. I'm now not. Is it possible to interview in London? And I share that because please do not, I don't want to say be afraid, but do not hesitate to communicate with us if something has changed. And this is, I promise you, this is a true story. So last year, I interviewed in London and then Paris. And in my first interview in Paris, the woman said to me, oh, guess what? We were on the same plane from London to Paris. And I said, well, if we were on the same plane, why didn't I just interview you in London? And she said, oh, because I wasn't sure where I was going to be. And then I had said Paris, and I didn't want to ask to change locations. Well, so we certainly appreciate that, but also hopefully you don't view us as that rigid that we wouldn't have been receptive to that. And while it's not explicitly listed here, common sense is in fact a quality that we really value. And so to the extent that it may have been easier for you, don't hesitate to reach out to us, okay? I feel really bad. Or when you want to do a Skype call, perhaps because the situation, you aren't able to interview with us in person, and it ends up being like 3, 4 in the morning your time. We don't want, no, I have interviewed people and I've said, what time is it? And they've said 4 a.m. And I'm like, why? Well, that was the time that was available. Again, reach out to us. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. And so in the end, again, oh, I know, one other thing around on the interview. So interviews in person, again, they're really building on this whole theme that we start with the written application of us getting to know you and you getting to know us better and asking ourselves these 3 questions. They're somewhere around 30 minutes. They could be a little longer. They could be a little less. Do not obsess over the time of the interview. There are lots of blogs out there with people sharing every minute of their applying to MBA experience. If it's anybody in this room or online, I'm not criticizing you for it. I actually a little curious about it. But, and there are people who actually will say, oh, my interview with Dawna was 22 minutes. Was that bad? Or did she not like me? Number one, I'm curious how they know it was exactly 22 minutes. And number 2, who knows? It could have meant that I got all the information I needed in that time and I thought you were great. You never know. And so we say it's around 30 minutes. The first part of it is, in fact, perhaps some follow-up on the application itself. We may have some questions around your education, your employment. Number 2, we will ask you a series of behavioral questions. Tell me about a time you had to convince an individual or a group to do something one way and they really wanted to do it a different way. What was the situation and how did you convince them? If you want to, we have some examples for you online, as well as, behavioral interviewing is not a new process. You Google, sample behavioral interview questions and you will get tons of examples. And then finally, it's the opportunity for you to ask us questions. And I encourage you to come prepared with a few thoughtful questions that you're really curious about and not things, excuse me, that are easy to find on the website. So don't go into your interview and ask about class size. I can tell you right now, it's between 400 and this year it's 416. And that's it. Okay? All right. So I did want to leave a few minutes for questions. So let's go back to our panel. Let's take their see how well they did on their homework assignment, and then we'll take a few questions from the audience. Anybody who has to leave, completely understanding, please feel free to go. All right. Back to the panel. One word or phrase that best, I bet they're all sitting here thinking, oh, that's what the application process was like. But nonetheless, one word or phrase that best describes your Sloan experience to date.
A warm community in the cold weather.
Warm community in cold weather. All right, we'll say that's a phrase. Got it.
Grateful.
Oh.
Humble. Transformative.
Great. Okay. A couple of questions from the audience. Anybody? Yes. Hi. I might repeat it just so the people online can hear it as well.
Okay, I can speak louder. Yeah.
Okay, you can speak louder too.
For the interview, is it conducted by the second-year MBA students or?
Oh, wow. Second years. No.
You're not
interviews.
qualified.
No. So interviews thank you. I should have mentioned that. So interviews are not conducted by students. They're not conducted by alums. They're conducted by a core group of people related to admissions. Yes, in the back.
Is it an initiative of the program to have a lot of interaction with the biotech companies in Kendall Square?
Say that again?
Is there a biotech focus?
Oh, is there a biotech focus?
In terms of the program design?
Yeah, I'm just looking at how many people come from biotech, and it's like 6% from healthcare and life sciences. So I'm wondering how much is that in people's minds when they come here, and how much do they intend to go there after? Of 400 people, how many people ended the biotech?
I think for the exact statistics, you can check our employment report on our website. But I think people share a wide range of interests in the broader healthcare concept, including biotech, hospital management, and life science ventures, etc. Yeah, we can talk offline about it in details.
Yes. No, right in front.
So this is for any of the panelists. It sounds like you've all come from really great jobs pre-Sloan. How have you adjusted to going back to school and back into the classroom? And do you have any tips for the rest of us?
For me, so I have a 2-year-old daughter. So I've been very intentional of setting my time in Sloan. So I used to work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. At work, and then go back home and not worry about work at all. Right? So I maintained that throughout my year and a half here, or almost 2 years now. So yeah, get to school at 6, got all the homework, and go to classes, and 6 o'clock I'm home. Right. So that has been very helpful.
Or you just finished a course.
I think the support from your core team is really helpful. So we have a few core team reflection sessions that help us to identify everyone's learning habits, everyone's learning priorities, and we come up with solutions and daily norms to really help each one to realize their own learning goals. So I think core team setting is really, really helpful.
Yeah, so a lot of us come from good jobs or go back to good jobs, but I think it's often overlooked is that when you're here, you're incredibly busy. You get involved. Our coursework is rigorous. Every Sloaney gets involved in at least a couple clubs or initiatives or conferences, panels. So, the community is very active and very vibrant. So it doesn't actually feel like it was that much of a break from a work perspective. We're still very busy, but it is an amazing time. And as you mentioned, you have the community here is incredibly supportive because at times it can be just as overwhelming as working 14 hours in a day. So
I think the only quick thing I'm going to say is you really get into what you put into it. And so if you're making the most of every single day, then yeah, I basically feel like I live in this building Monday through Friday afternoon, basically, but I'm happy to do it. Other people have different approaches, but it's very energy intensive overall.
Read, any online?
Yeah, quite a few. One is, I know this is a really large question, but if anyone could touch in brief about entrepreneurship at MIT Sloan and through the Martin Trust Center, if any of you have done anything or your peers in brief.
No? Anybody?
I can speak on behalf of Friends.
Sure.
So we have the ENI, our entrepreneurship and innovation track that a lot of our students are involved in, and then kind of the hallmark there is that you have personal access to either Sloan or industry startup founders and experts in the area that you could think through. There's also Sandbox, which is a pool of funding that supports students' ideas, and it really welcomes businesses and groups that are cross-collaborative, so it's not just Sloan-focused. I think a lot of people try the 100K and Delta V routes to either build up their own companies or find companies that they want to work for over the summer. So whether it's you want to build something, you want to work for something, or you just want to learn more about it because maybe you'll go into VC or PE afterwards, there are so many different areas academically, personally, and professionally that you can explore this path through.
Great. Okay. So thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and I'm sensitive to people's needs to go to work or to study. I want to thank everybody online for connecting with us from around the globe. I want to thank everybody in this room for joining us this morning. I want to thank our incredible panel for sharing your time. We all wish you much luck on exams, projects, whatever you have to get through the semester. I can hang around a little bit. I have some colleagues who are here as well. We look forward to receiving each and every one of your applications. So thank you all very, very much.